Welcome to the Sunday Ramble. This week, we're going to cover everything that kind of went on in the small business on my channel and some things that happened in the community, including the firmware that got released for the X1C and the H2D. So let's get into it. First, let's get into Amazon. I think I'm going to get in trouble again. I had an order come in on Saturday and it was actually Friday night. So Saturday, I come in. I already have the product printed. I've been doing that pretty faithfully, just keeping ahead of the game. So I put the product in the box, run the label, everything I'm supposed to do. And my only shipping options, none of my options were USPS. And that makes sense because it's Saturday. But the problem is where I live, FedEx also does not run. As a matter of fact, most of the pack and shipping centers are closed on Saturdays here. So even though I was able to run a label for FedEx Ground, I wasn't actually able to ship it. I took the box over to the shipping center and they weren't open. So I wasn't able to ship it. So what does that mean? Well, it means I'm going to have another late shipment. And this is FedEx's demand that once the item is shipped, that it's received by the client in X amount of time. But where I live, lots of times that's not possible. And I feel like that's just every time an order comes in on Friday night, it's going to be late. And I don't know that there's anything I can do about it. I'm going to need get a hold of Amazon and see if we can work something out or, what exactly can be done. Because if I continue to have late shipments like that, well, they'll suspend my account. That won't be good. I did get my first Amazon return, and that was pretty painless for the most part. The customer claimed that when they got it and first time they tried to use it, it broke, which isn't typical of that product. At this point, I've sold nearly 100 of those items and never had any negative feedback about it. So this was a unique situation. Because I switched from Bambu PETG to Sunlu PETG, I thought, oh no, what if there's some kind of dimensional issue and I just didn't see it? Even though I took measurements and everything within parameters. So I went out and bought the product that this is actually an accessory for to test it. And yes, indeed, it actually fits a little bit better with Sunlu PETG over the Bambu PETG. So that's not it. How did the product break? I guess we'll figure it out. And part of the return process, not only did I have to return her money that they paid for the item, but I also had to pay, I think I had to pay for a return label so they could return the product to me. So that'll be interesting when I get it back. I can look and see how exactly it failed. This is a great opportunity, even though it ultimately costs me money. It's a great opportunity to look at the product and say, how can I strengthen it so this person, whatever they did, doesn't cause the product to fail? I'm hoping I get it back. I think that's part of the Amazon process is that they return it to me, but it wasn't abundantly clear. But I was just kind of shook in that moment. I sent them a message and offered to send them a new one as a replacement. They turned that offer down. They were very nice about it, but they turned that offer down and just preferred to have their money back. So that was fine. I initiated that return and it was done. It was fairly painless considering it was Amazon. I really enjoy watching other YouTubers that do the kind of same thing as me. It's to watch their process of filling and packing orders, and then it gives me things I can pick up on. For instance, this week I was watching Mountain Maker, and I typically print out the customer's packing slip on an 8x10 or whatever printer paper, and then print their label. To me, the label printer was for labels. I just couldn't see beyond that. It was so funny to watch him actually print the packing slip and the shipping on the same machine. So his label printer. So now the customer's packing slip is basically the size of a label. It instantaneously made sense to me. I was like, yeah, so much easier. That way I can just rip it loose and throw it in a box, and it's not a giant piece of paper I have to fold up. I hope that was what that was. sometimes I see things and then I get an idea and I just assume that that's what I saw, and it may not have been, but it inspired me to do it that way. So that's now what I'm doing, even though that makes me use about twice as much label material than I would normally use. But I think it might be worth it for the convenience. Earlier this week, I did a video about a grid for one of my lights. It was an Ambifill A2. It was kind of me going through the design iteration of creating that product and using it with that light. At this moment, it is the worst performing video I've ever done. So even though I really enjoyed that process, no one wanted to see it. It's the strangest thing. And it was so funny because I knew that would be the case. I knew it would. I did a video about Bambu's firmware, and we'll get into more of that in a minute. And I did another video about power consumption in the 3D printers, and those did pretty much exactly what I thought they would do. But anytime I try to go down the route of the functional print Friday kind of format, it just falls flat on its face. It's obviously something that I don't need to do because no one cares about it. At least anybody that's watching my channel doesn't care about it. Which really makes me wonder, is a gear shift even possible? After you've established something for your YouTube channel, to kind of be all over the place, to do modeling and design work in one video, and then talk about 3D printing hardware in the next, that seems to be a tough spot to be in for both of them to be very successful. Now, I know people that do that and have very well established YouTube channels, and they can kind of get away with that. But with me just being, I think we're just now at like 2,200 subscribers, a little early in the game, and it seems like the followers I have are very focused on me just being 3D print business related or 3D printer period. The Bambu firmware video was without doubt the most popular video I've ever had. And basically, I just went through and showed people, hey, I did the update and this is what it takes. If you want to use it normally, this is what happens. If you want to use land mode, this is what happens. And if you want to use Orca, you want to use your big tree tech stuff, this is what you got to do. And it was pretty simple. And honestly, the comments didn't get the message. It was kind of wild that people would say, oh, I'll never buy another Bambu printer because they did this. I mean, essentially, if you were in land mode and you were using Orca Slicer and you were using something for Big Tree Tech and you wanted to continue to work exactly the way you did, you could update the printer and while it's in land mode, just click the dev mode's little not tick thing, boop, turn in dev mode. Everything works exactly the same. Literally nothing changes from your workflow from previous. But because I showed them early on, oh, I just did the update, Orca doesn't work. We knew it wouldn't work. But I was just showing them firsthand that yes, indeed, Orca does not work. Now, when you put it in land mode and you attempt to print, this is where the issue lies. When you put it in land mode and you attempt to print, it doesn't work. Because even in land mode, there's still an authentication factor. Going back to Bambu, authenticating with their servers before the job is sent, even directly to the printer. Now, to be honest with you, I don't understand it. I don't know if I'm in land mode, why do I need to authenticate to Bambu? I'm not 100% sure. So only when you put it in dev mode does it stop reaching out to Bambu for authentication. And after that, which I don't normally, just to let you guys know, I don't run in land mode. I run in cloud mode. I've always have. I've experimented with land mode just to understand how it works, but my experience is far better with cloud turned on. I can log into my machines in the middle of the night and check their statuses, and that's a great feature. So I just continue to use it. I don't care if my printer reaches out to Bambu to authenticate. Why do I care? What's the big deal? My Sony TV reaches out to Sony all the time. It always pops up when there's an update. My phone in constant contact with Apple, pushing data back and forth and updates and photos and chat and you name it, everything. I'm so used to every device in my life talking back to some central server. For my printer to do it, to me, it's not that big a deal. Now, some people far more passionate about it, and to be honest, I don't get it. When people talked about the firmware being locked down, and I'm like, everyone loves the new Elegoo Centauri. Clipper's locked down in that machine. But for some reason, it doesn't register with people. You can't do anything with Clipper in the Centauri. It's locked down completely. And based off some of their old machines and some of the problems that I'm seeing with their old machines, I really don't blame them. So the problem is when you leave that firmware open, people get in there and they start tinkering around. And eventually they break things and things don't work right. It's easier for a manufacturer to just lock down the firmware. That way, at the very least, we can guarantee that part of the experience. Unfortunately, the slicer is still up to you. And if you choose the wrong settings, you're going to get a bad print. But they lock down as much as they can to ensure the printing process is successful. At the end of the day, if you're getting good prints, that's what matters. And believe me, we can go down this rabbit hole even deeper. It is kind of funny, though, to see the H2D leak come out and really just follow that X1C firmware. Such a strategic move. Immediately, I start seeing videos of the same people that were tearing down Bambu just weeks ago, talking about they would never purchase another machine from Bambu. The firmware drops and they're all in a hype. Oh my, it is exactly what they said it would be. And then the H2D video or the H2D photo leaks, and now they're making YouTube videos about how great the H2D could be. You understand? They're doing all this for hype, right? They're doing it to get views. They're doing it to get paid. At the end of the day, they get you all hyped up about what could be going on or how you could be limited with your product. But at the end of the day, they're just doing all this for YouTube views. And honestly, no different than me. If I'm being 100% honest, do I even care about the firmware? No, I don't. I just installed it. It still runs perfectly. I didn't even have to do anything. And that's good enough. But I made a video showing how it would fail if you tried to use Orca. Obviously, people are been fed into this hysteria about Orca not working in regular mode. That why wouldn't I make a video showing them exactly what they want to see? Now, the difference is that I actually show how to fix the problem too. Now, that is actual value. To say, yes, if you were using Orca before and you do the update, it's going to break it, but this is how you fix it. That's where you bring actual value. You're not just hyping people up and then leaving them out there in an hysterical state, but actually showing them how to fix the problem. To me, that's a valuable video. But anyway, we've got some other business to attend to, and we can't be on this subject all day long. Now, I've been telling you guys for a few videos now that I'm going to be transitioning back to my house, and I'm doing a lot of prints for exactly that. And one of those is stuck to the plate still. How dare you stick to the plate? But one of those is rep rack. I'm doing some rep rack at the house. That way I can hang up all of my filament on the wall instead of it being on a shelf like this. I have pretty limited room. I figured out that I need 7. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need 2 more of those. And that'll at least get the initial rack up. I may end up having to do another one underneath of it. But I really want this setup to be nice at the house. I want it to be functional for the purpose of my commercial work, but I also want it to be nice like a studio. So I'm going to be doing a lot of work in the next couple weeks to get it there. Obviously, if you want to follow along with that process, all you got to do is hit subscribe, hit that little bell, and you'll get notifications anytime I do an upload. So I've got a couple more of my products that I'm selling pretty regularly, and I've been printing a few of those ahead of time, just so as order comes in, I can fill that order immediately, and then I don't have to worry about it. Now, I had another order come in right over there, and that one is one I have not printed much ahead of time. So today I'm going to be printing out several of those to have those in stock. Another reason is during this transition period where I'm going to be transitioning from here to the house, there may be a time when the printers are down and they're not running. And I need to have enough of my products available. That way I can continue to ship without a problem, just in case I'm down for a couple of days. Just in case you guys are not up to speed, the business that's on the other side of this building that I've run for 10 years is closing. And that's obviously a major change in my life. And you're going to see part of that whole process or the result of it here, because it also affects my 3D print business. If I'm not going to be over there anymore, well, I don't need to be here anymore. And ultimately, like I've said in other videos, I found a lot more inspiration being at home than I did being here. With just these four walls, I'm not in my life. I'm just in this building. But when I'm home, I can look to solve problems because that's where the problems are, at home. So it's not a bad thing. Now, obviously, after 10 years of self-employment, seeking a job again is very different. I haven't sat down for an interview for 25 years. And that process is a little different. So something I've got to deal with. But will that affect the 3D print business or my YouTube channel? Well, I don't intend for it to, but I hope it doesn't. Maybe the times I shoot might change, but I intend to keep doing exactly what I'm doing. All right, enough of all that. Back to work here. All right, so we're continuing to print the rep rack. Yes, the rep rack. So I've got two more to hit the 7 that I need for the house. Then I thought about cutting my own cleats. And then I thought about printing the cleats that, if you're not aware, this rep rack uses French cleats. Thought about cutting my own out of wood and mounting them to the wall. Then also just thought about printing out the ones that they supply with this. I'm not sure which direction I'll go just yet. And I've got 2 more of these to decide, I suppose. So over here today, what we're going to do is I've got an order for another one of those products, those accessory products. And I've been printing these out one at a time, but in the last month or so, I've sold a couple of these. And again, just to be ahead of the game, because I think that's smart, we're going to go ahead and do 4 of them today. That way I've got them ready. I have an order for 1 right now. So instead of, having none, at least I'll have 3 on hand. And I may do even more, to be honest, because during this transition from here to the house and remodeling and trying to get everything set up there, I may be down for a couple of days. And I want to make sure I can fill all my orders during that change. The humidity level in here is pretty high, higher than normal. So we're going to see how that affects my PETG. It's actually been out all night on the spool. Has not been dried for several days now. So we'll just see how that goes. So far, so good. Everything looks good. This is PETG, but it's obviously been in the AMS, and the AMS is keeping things under control. I felt like these were a little under extruded. Like my top layers were not looking amazing. So I did, instead of running the calibration like I should have, I just went in and bumped the extrusion up the flow rate up just a couple of notches, just to see if we can get a better looking top surface. But at the end of the day, it's rep rack and it doesn't really matter. So let's talk about a little H2D speculation. Obviously, a picture was put out on the internet and the timing was excellent because it was just right after the X1C firmware was released. So people didn't really get a chance to go bonkers about the firmware, even though there was absolutely no surprises about it. And I did a separate video, and if you haven't seen that, just hit my channel, and or I'll try to link it up here so you can check it out. But let's talk a little bit about the H2D. Now, they released a photo, and they certainly gave away a lot of information with that single photo. First, let's talk a little bit about bed size, because it does seem strange. 340 by 320 by 325. Like, none of them are this. We're used to 256 by 256 by 256. But if we think about the dual heads and the fact that the heads, to me, they look to be about 10 millimeters apart, I would say that you're going to lose some printable area because you're trying to print multicolor and there's two heads and there's a bit of an offset between those heads. So in reality, my guess is that the printable area will probably be 320 by 320 by 325. You're probably going to lose about 10 millimeters because of the distance between the heads. And they're kind of in a fixed position. I think they just move up and down instead of, the original schematics that we had saw where the heads were kind of like side by side and they rock back and forth. Doesn't appear to be the case. It appears to be that the heads will move up and down. And how ultimately that works with the AMS and loading materials and unloading materials, we have no idea at this point. There's definitely some interesting speculation. As far as the new AMS, now, that does look interesting. It has a screen. It's definitely reading out the humidity level and the temperature. And it also has what appears to be a timer. Now, for me, why would you need a timer other than drying filament? So I'm assuming at this point that we have a filament dryer built into this AMS. Now, why that wouldn't be automatic, I'm not sure. Why do we require a timer? I don't know. It's a good question. We don't know any of those answers just yet. Now, the other speculation is that this machine could be incorporating a laser. There's a couple of reasons why. If you look at the head configuration with the two print heads, above it clearly looks like something's missing. Now, that could just be a cover, or it could be some type of attachment that goes onto the printer itself. It didn't help that on top of that, there appeared to be what looked like a laser head or a laser unit laying on top of the machine. Now, to add to that, if you look at the tint on the glass on the machine, it's green. And that is a typical color for an enclosed laser machine, to have green tinted glass to protect your eyes from the laser. Now, there's a ton of speculation on what this actually could be, what type of laser it could be. More than certainly, it's not a fiber laser, and that would be the perfect, honestly, that would be the perfect laser for the purpose, would be a fiber laser. That way we could mark on materials like PETG. But I just don't see a fiber laser being included, and I think it loses some potential if it's not a fiber laser. But again, this is just speculation based off what the picture shows us. Now, we've heard some speculation on price, and I think it's been between $2,200 and maybe $2,500. And honestly, that makes a lot more sense if there's a laser included. For $2,500, you get a dual extruder printer with a laser. I would pay $2,500 for that all day long. Now, again, that's all speculation. We don't know that laser is a real thing. It kind of looks like it is, but there's no way for us to really know until the printer drops. Now, it's been interesting here today. We've got several tornado warnings going on, and the power has gone on and off. And when I moved here, I left some of my battery backups at the house. I never brought them here because the grid here is so stable. Like, I've been here at this location for 10 years, and we've probably had the power go out 3 times in 10 years. So just never expected it to happen. Well, today was one of those days. So the power went out and came back on, and went back out and came back on, and got to the point where I can continue to try to print if the power is going to keep cycling. So now it's a little bit later, and things have stabilized. So I'm resuming printing just for my order. And then once I get that order filled and get it ready to ship out, then I may start some additionals for print for stock. But right now I'm concentrating on getting that one order out. That way I don't have to worry about being late. Even though I'm pretty sure my next order is going to be late again, and there's nothing I can do about it, but it is what it is, unfortunately. Well, that's it, guys. I've got a bunch of stuff I've got to do today, and we're definitely going to be starting on the new location and getting things ready to get moved over there. So I've got to get home and get that stuff taken care of. But I definitely wanted to make you a video, give you a shout out for Sunday, and we'll see you next video. All right, guys. Later.